And welcome to the final Kelly and Wrighty Show of this season, and what a season it's been.
Unbelievable season, Kels, but can I be honest, team that deserved to win won. Simple.
And they got the trophy yesterday,
Yes.
but that was just the end of what's been an incredible 38 games for everybody. We now know everything is decided. We know who's won the league. We know who's going down. We know who's going to be playing in Europe and which European competition they're going to be playing in. Here's how it all panned out.
Don't let others steer you down the wrong path and keep your focus. Course our emotions are potent, but so are your thoughts. The more you believe in the force that gives you life, the more you will conquer. If you are doubting yourself, just have faith that little bit longer.
That is absolute genius!
You are ready, you are wiser, you are stronger.
Oh, the shots, Liverpool march towards title number 20.
This is the home of the League Cup winners.
The greatest day in their history. Celebration in North London. Tarkovsky! What a finish!
Boys and girls.
In this historic stadium, there will be tears among the cheers.
What a hit! Relegation to the Championship is confirmed. Up and under! A huge nail in the hopes of Arsenal. Goal 200, the final one. For 10 years, he has ruled the roost. They salvage a golden ticket to the Champions League next season. Arne Slot's Liverpool have reached the promised land. Title number 20, Liverpool, Premier League champions.
There they are, in gold. Liverpool, the Premier League champions for the second time, their 20th title. Arsenal in second place. In the end, it was 10 points between the top two sides. Manchester City in third, Chelsea fourth, Newcastle fifth. Villa miss out on Champions League. They're in the Europa League. Nottingham Forest in the conference place. There could potentially, depending on what happens with Chelsea, be places further down, but we'll talk about that when we come to it. Meanwhile, down at the other end of the table, we've known for a few weeks now that the teams who are promoted from the Championship are the teams who will be going back to the Championship next season. Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester. Spurs, the Europa League winners, in 17th place in the table. Manchester United ended the season with a win, but it only takes them up to 15th in the table, and only that on goal difference above Wolves. We'll reflect on most of the big stories around the league season, but we're going to start by what was a dramatic final day in terms of the Champions League places. Michael Owen is here, Darren Lewis is here. It kept changing. I mean, by half-time, there'd only been one goal, and that was Manchester City's, and nothing was really happening.
No.
But it opened up in the second half.
It did, yeah, but there was an excitement about it simply because we needed some form of excitement, because obviously Liverpool had done it, and like you so rightly mentioned in the intro, by 10 points, which made me feel really bad in the end, Kels. But
well, it's better than the 15 it was when they actually won it.
But yeah, in the end, obviously, I kind of felt for Villa. You heard, what's the captain? John McGinn. You heard John McGinn's interview talking about how, OK, they played badly in that, but those kind of decisions. And again, to have one like that was really sad for him. But I think that it's been a great season, and it feels like it's a massive downer for them simply because of the way it ended. But I was quite excited the way it ended in the end. OK,
well, we'll come to the other teams then, but we'll start with Aston Villa then, because it was an extraordinary decision, and that is the difference between potentially Champions League, because you don't know what would have happened if Villa had gone one up at this point. So the referee on the pitch decides that the keeper has got it under control, and so Morgan Rogers has fouled him, and therefore the goal doesn't stand. He blows that. So I think it's fairly universally agreed that it wasn't a foul and that Bayern didn't have it under control. The referee blows the whistle before that happens, and so VAR cannot intervene because the ball hasn't crossed the line. So it's not a goal decision, and that's where the problem is.
the moment it happens, all of us in media know that that is the moment of the match, and it's going to probably have repercussions beyond the 90 minutes. I mean, Michael will be able to give you the science bit, but I think as far as the drama of the situation is concerned, people turn around and say, listen, they lost by 2 goals, but had that goal been given, as it should have been, the game would have been completely different. Yeah. And so I feel a huge amount of sympathy for Villa because it's a mistake by the referee.
You know, and Villa down to 10 men as well, we should say, because Emi Martinez had been sent off on stroke of half time.
Yeah, you do feel like people are talking about the the experience of the referee. Should they have had a more experienced referee? I'm not sure that should have been the case. I think that referee with the rules, knowing that, you know what, I can let this run, and if it's a foul, then I'll give the foul, but let VAR do its job. That was the big disappointment. And like you rightly say, Darren, for Villa, you know, John McGinn talking about how poorly they played, but that kind of gives you a foothold back in it, Kells, and you might be able to kick on there. So it's a massive, massive mistake, that was.
And Villa have made a complaint, Michael.
They've made a complaint. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, is it? I mean, but actually,
I think they've said that. They've sort of acknowledged that.
They've intimated that.
Which is wrong as well in itself.
It is.
They've been wronged.
They have, but it's a bad decision, and they won't be the first, and they're not the first, and they won't be the last to have been on the end of a bad refereeing decision. And it's important to state that and to emphasise that it's a refereeing decision. It's nothing to do with VAR. So, of course, what we've got in football nowadays is the assistant referees, i.e. the linesmen, they're now well adverse to keeping their flag down and letting a situation play out. They've copped on. They're fine with it. They've been doing that for a period of time. Referees are supposed to be doing the same thing in that situation. So for the referee to not give it literally 1 or 2 seconds extra and just let it play out. Now, if he sees a foul, thinks it's a foul, and it's in the middle of the pitch, blow straight away all you like. But when it's a goal-scoring opportunity, you've got to let it play out, even if you're 99.9%.
And even then, referees are advised when they're training, let things breathe, even if it's not for the purposes of referring it to VAR, just to give themselves a bit of mental space to process it. So that should be a natural instinct for a referee, not to go in too early.
It's there to help it.
It's interesting, the wording of what we just saw on the screen, because it doesn't seek to actually justify what he did. It just articulates what he did. Yeah. It's not defending him, because there is an acceptance that it's a mistake by the referee. And the irony is that all season long, I've been privately frustrated at the number of times players are allowed to go on when players are clearly offside. Yeah, and the Taiwan Munyi situation is an example of that. So here's an example where there isn't a foul committed, there isn't anyone whose safety has been endangered. Surely there is an opportunity for, as Mike was saying, just to let play go, let the game breathe, and then make a decision.
You know, the thing is, Kelsey, with the PGMO is the fact that there's no accountability in respects of that, like you rightly say, Darren, that is a massive mistake. As well, Michael saying that. Why can't they just come out and say that instead of putting it in such an eloquent way that it twists your mind, you know, with what they're saying?
Well, I think, to be fair, in that statement, they have just described what happens, which is the on-field referee made a decision, probably made it a bit too quickly, and so VAR couldn't intervene. But your frustrations, I get, are across the whole of the season. Although, wasn't this the season you weren't going to talk about VAR?
Yeah, but like, VAR will rear its head because, unfortunately...
and this isn't, to be clear, as Michael pointed out, this isn't a VAR decision. This is because it didn't go to VAR. So fans, people who aren't fans of VAR...
They want it.
Are the ones who are saying,
because in that situation...
We can accept human error, but in this case, they're going, no, but actually, that was human error and we don't like it.
In this situation, we needed VAR. You know, so if we're going to use it, then let's use it.
Yeah, while it's there, it needs to be used properly. But it is a human error, and it's about a matter of a couple of seconds.
There's been a lot of human error.
The problem is that this is what Aston Villa's Champions League qualification may or may not have depended on. Because who knows, you know, down to 10 men, if they'd gone a goal up against Manchester United, if they'd been able to kind of capitalise on what would have been a much flatter atmosphere at Old Trafford, they may well have gone on to get the 3 points that they needed. And that this end to the season, the turn since January when they picked themselves back up, you could argue merited a place in the Champions League come the end.
17 minutes to go, 1-0 Aston Villa against a Manchester United team that have got nothing to play for. I think it's safe to say that we would be sat here, if everything was equal, we'd be sat here with Aston Villa in the Champions League and Newcastle not. That's the bottom line. And the repercussions of that are huge. I mean, financially, both of those teams are flying close to the wind in terms of their financial fair play stuff. They've had to sell players that probably didn't want to sell in recent times. So that windfall of money could be crucial. Champions League football attracting players, the players that are allowed to buy, of course, then the experience for the current players of playing in the Champions League and what that then could propel them to in the future, etc. It is
massive,
monumental.
Newcastle, on the other, and this is always one of my favourite things on the final day of the season, is when players are on the pitch waiting for another match to finish to find out what their destiny is going to be. This was Newcastle players after they'd found out that they qualified, obviously, for the Champions League. But having lost the game, they were nervous at the end. They felt that they hadn't done enough to get it over the line until they realised that they'd benefited from that result at Old Trafford.
You have to be so happy for Newcastle. You know what I mean? Won the League Cup, which is a massive thing for them. So for them to end up and not get into the Champions League, to then try and, you know what I mean, build on that win. I'm not saying they're going to go and win the Champions League. Hopefully for Newcastle fans they can, but it gives them a season that you can say this is success and a progressive season for us in respect of what we've achieved this season. So they're very fortunate, and they've got it off of the back of Villa.
And it's the flip side down of what Michael just said about Aston Villa, which is what they can do in the summer, because one, they're more attractive if they're in the Champions League, and two, they've got the money potentially to add to the squad to keep the players that they want to keep.
Well, Isak in particular, because had they not finished in the top 5, then a big team would have come along and said, we can offer you Champions League football. I love the fact that we were hearing the Champions League music when they were celebrating. Very cheeky by the PA guy.
By the way, the PA at Newcastle's had a couple of... When they beat Crystal Palace 4-0 the other week, they played Glad All Over at the final whistle as well,
They're trolling.
Yeah, they've had a little bit of fun with the music at St James's Park this season.
But I think as far as... this has been the year of the sleeping giant, if not the underdog. But certainly, you can't say Newcastle are underdogs. They're owned by a nation state. But at the same time, they are sleeping giants, and Eddie Howe's woken them up. And had it not been the case that Arne Slot come along and done something extraordinary with Liverpool, you would be talking about Eddie Howe as a potential manager of the season, not just because he's won a trophy, not just because he's got them into the top 5, but because what had been a bit of a basket case of a club, he's gone there and he's stabilised it and just done so well. During periods, I would suspect, we all know how football works, agents would be throwing high calibre A-list managers at Newcastle, but they stuck with Eddie Howe. He's got them now to a stage where, as you were saying, they can build on what they've done so far in the Champions League and domestically. And next season, I think they'll be even stronger.
Yeah. Talking of managers, Enzo Maresca was punchy yesterday on Chelsea's qualification for the Champions League. He had a message which we won't repeat, but he did have a message for the people who'd maybe suggested that Chelsea might not qualify for the Champions League and that would be a disastrous season for them.
Yeah, well, it would have been. You know, when you're looking at the monies and the PSR situation that Chelsea find themselves in, and the fact that they're a club that's spent so much money, they have to be in it. You can see, like, people were sending me like memes and everything of Chelsea players going crazy that they've qualified in 4th, like it's a trophy, you know. I'm not saying that when Arsenal celebrated.
Everybody just left you the space to say that.
Thank you, Kels. You lot know me so well. But why wouldn't they be that happy? Yeah. Chelsea need that. Yeah. They do need some experienced players, obviously, to go alongside that, because during that season, he did go through a spell where you did have to question what was going on with the tactics, with the players. Has he got the right players? Can they play to the system that he needed? Palmer's form, everything that was happening. For them to then get to the place where they now qualify, it changes everything for Chelsea.
But right, do you know who the biggest critics of Maresca are? The Chelsea fans. Yeah. Do you know who said in December that they weren't ready to compete at the top level?
Yeah, he said
Maresca.
I thought it was a mistake
last month that they didn't have enough experience in the squad and the team to be in this race for the top 5. Maresca. It was Maresca. He is the one who said all these things. And even now that they're in the top 5, there are a lot of Chelsea fans that still aren't happy with his style of play. They're still not happy with the recruitment, the amount of money that they've spent, and they went into the final game without a recognised striker. It's all on the club, but he's kind of sending it outwards. But actually, I think he needs to look at himself. The messaging is all wrong.
Yeah, having said all of that, Chelsea might well be 1 or 2 experienced players away from having a really good season next season.
Yeah, and they're 1 game away from winning a European trophy and qualifying for the Champions League. I mean, it's incredible. I've never known a season whereby managers are so under pressure until that last game. 1 win and almost heroes.
Yeah.
You look at Tottenham, you look at... I mean, I wouldn't say go as far as to say Manchester United, but if they had won a trophy into the Champions League, you could dress it up as success. Chelsea were teetering on the edge. Could it be a shocking season? If they're spending all that money and not getting into the top 5 would have been a disaster.
It would have.
Make no bones about it.
On many levels,
There were so many managers that were teetering on that last game, and of course some of them have come up smelling the roses.
What about one who teetered and didn't quite make it, and in fact is going to be playing in the Conference League next season, in Nuno Espirito Santo? How secure... I was reading a really interesting article on him, which is it's a very complicated decision to make because, again, it's not a style of football that people necessarily warm to that he plays, but it's been incredibly effective. It got them to the brink of Champions League qualification. They've fallen short. They're going to be in the Conference League, which is way beyond what their expectations would have been, having just been in a relegation battle last time around. And yet, do you keep the manager that takes them there? Is he the man to progress again next season? Yeah. But it's not... I don't think it's as straightforward as saying, well, he took them to 6th and therefore we stick with him. I don't know.
Well, I think the shock in your voice kind of sums up what we all think, because obviously he's done a terrific job. But Marinakis is a guy with a big portfolio of clubs, big ambitions. You know, he's managed to spirit Edu away from Arsenal. Goodness me, how you know, you've got to be thinking big if you've got the capability of doing that. And I think he will be thinking along your lines, Kelly. I think he will be thinking we could have been in the promised land. It could have been transformative for the club. If I'd had a more experienced manager, maybe someone a bit more savvy and someone a bit more A-list, maybe that would have got us into a position where I could have been... He's probably spent the money already, you know. So, yeah, I would worry for Nuno. I really would, despite the fact that he's done a superb job. This time last year, they were 17th in the Premier League. This time around, they're in Europe. But I don't think that's going to be enough for him.
You have to look at him and you think, so how does a manager like Nuno then get to that next level? If he's done everything what he's done with Forest up to this point, you know, once he's come in after the managers that they had and he's stabilised everything, he's got them to play a style of football which works for Forest, very solid at the back, the 2 guys in front, the fast wingers, the big man up front, and it works and they do punish people, they play it very well. Unfortunately, they came up short, but then why wouldn't you then give him the backing to say, right, next season I need to be in Champions League? Because you think to yourself, how does Nuno kick on? You know, we saw what happened with him at Spurs. You know, we know he had a good time at Wolves. We saw what happened with him at Spurs. He seems to have found his feet at Forest. How does Nuno go again if he then gets sacked by an owner that you would not be surprised if he did do it? I'd be very, very disappointed because then I believe that Nuno's got the capability of getting Forest into that top 4 with what they've done this season. But, you know, Conference League, as much as, you know, we look at it, and obviously it's the least of the tournaments. You know, you still got a chance to be in Europe. You've got to take it.
And the other thing as well is, for Forest fans, being back in Europe as well, they're going to have the best away days. Because the Conference League, with all the kind of sort of smaller towns and that, they're going to have the best away days, those Forest fans, if they're going to be travelling around with Forest next season. We should also talk about Manchester City. Pep Guardiola has already said, even when they went into the FA Cup final, he said, even if we've won that, it's still not a good season by our standards. So going by what the manager has said, even finishing 3rd, getting to a cup final, it's not enough for City. The question is what they do over the summer and whether that puts them in a good position to get back to where they want to be next time.
Exactly that. I happen to believe that there's that much wrong there that they'll do very well to bounce straight back and become champions again next season. Rodri coming back is obviously going to be a huge boost for them, but that team is going to be almost unrecognisable from the successful team. Already you look at the team now and there's 4 or 5 players that you think, well, they weren't the players that went and won all those big trophies. They've already been a big change, and I feel that it's going to be even more change over the summer. A lot of the household names, Gundogan will probably stay, but the Silvas, the Gundogans, the Kovacic's, De Bruyne is going, but they're all 30 plus.
Grealish potential.
Grealish is going to go. So there's a massive change about to happen, if it already hasn't. It's been a really poor season, and as I say, I think they've gone that far backwards. I actually look at the league table there, and I think it flatters them. You know, they've been really poor this season. They've done well to get into third, really. Liverpool, obviously, they only got 2 points out of the last 12. They sort of totally took their foot off it. So, in theory, they're probably 20-odd points behind in reality. And I think that's far too much of a gap to make up when I think it's a bit of a rebuild job. And Pep Guardiola's never done that before. You know, lots of people say how good he is, and he is. He's incredible. But he took over at Barcelona, he took over at Bayern Munich, he took over at Manchester. He had unbelievable teams that he was taking over and did unbelievable things. Of course he did. But he's never really had to see through a total rebuild. And I think he's got one on his hands now.
Yeah, and that's going to be very interesting to watch and see how he approaches that. We should also, just for you, talk about Tottenham, the Europa League winners. They've qualified for the Champions League. They finished in 17th in the table. Ange Postecoglou has done it.
Yes.
He's got the trophy in his second season. He always does it. And he talked about that comment and said, I wasn't being particularly belligerent or defensive there. I was just saying,
what happens?
That's what I do. I do always win a trophy in my second season. How did they do it?
You know something, can I just say quickly, Dan, I watched them yesterday, and watching them yesterday at home to Brighton losing made me think, did that happen the other day?
Yeah, but that one is understandable.
Yeah, but the thing is...
But the rest of the performances...
Yeah, but it's like they were that poor going into it. Then all of a sudden they get that performance, and I'm not saying it was magnificent, and then they win that and they get all the jubilation and everything. And then Brighton happens, and I'm thinking, did that really just happen? Are Tottenham in the Champions League next season, and did that really happen? And yeah, it did happen. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, you know something? I was there, and I just had to like sneak out like a thief in the night because I went to watch it. Can't believe I went to watch Tottenham and Man United, but like, you cannot help but feel happy for the Tottenham fans, what I saw. And I'm pleased. I'm pleased for Ange, even though it's been a nightmare season for them. I'm pleased for Ange because, you know, if you hang in there, you can get something, and that's what he did.
I think, and knowing the club as well as you do, having covered them for so many years, Darren, I think what he said about the significance of winning that trophy is really interesting, because he said finishing, for example, third in the table, moving up the table, is not necessarily going to change the culture at a club. Only winning trophies changes the culture at the club, and until you've done that, you don't know what that feels like, and you don't know how to get over the line. I'm really interested in that because of what successive managers have said about the mentality at Tottenham. Well,
Conte being the one who was really scathing when he left, and then Mourinho afterwards joked about Spurs as well, and lots of 11 managers over 17 years have failed to do what Postecoglou's done. Mike can speak to you more about sort of that culture of winning that basically develops within a side that manages to get over the line. Maybe you're right as well. But I think as far as Spurs as a club are concerned, they've needed this.
Yes.
You know, for me, this is the first European trophy in 41 years. They've actually needed that, because I think it's such a big trophy. Arsenal haven't won a trophy in Europe. And so this kind of places them, in a way, it gives them that bit of kudos that they can really kick on with. But then it becomes about another big chance for the chairman, Daniel Levy. Are they going to sanction an expenditure that's going to get them back into the top echelon in terms of competing for players, going above what they have had as a wage bill, and bringing in the quality that deepens a squad and gets a bit of consistency? I was with Spurs fans at the weekend, and they were saying everyone keeps making reference to all of our games that we've lost, but nobody cares if you win a big trophy, and that's what we've done. So I don't understand why people are.
And do they let Postecoglou spend that money?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are saying, right, even though he's gone and won something, will something change in the next week or so? Will he still be the
man? Sack a guy who's made? Does any business sack a guy who's made £100 million for them? And
or when Daniel Levy brought in Jose Mourinho, he wanted to bring in a manager who could win trophies. Yeah. Now he's got a manager who's won a trophy. Does he stick or twist?
And he did in the past as well.
And has every second season. But you've won trophies at some of the biggest clubs in Europe. So is there something in the psyche? If you are a club that wins trophies, is it different? Is there
absolutely.
Different?
Absolutely. I totally hear what he says about, you know, coming third or fourth in the league or winning something. You remember those days, you cling on to those days, you love the feeling, you want that again. I mean, I'm a little bit as a total neutral, a little bit doom and gloom about Tottenham, to be honest. I mean, they have been awful all season. The only reason they probably won that competition is because no Champions League sides now drop into the Europa League. Did they play anybody any good? I mean, even the final, I mean, it was probably the worst game of football I've ever watched.
European finals are never great, but that was...
Oh, it was so bad. I mean, I rarely want to switch over in a final.
I've got to say as well that Darren forgot that we did win the Cup Winners' Cup. Expanded now. Because when you said Arsenal haven't won, I just thought to myself, oh, you're Naeem.
Yeah.
But the Naeem from the halfway line, but we won it the year before. But like...
but don't you all agree that finals are for winning? The quality of the doesn't have to be
Darren...
We're talking about the future now, aren't we? And whether, Postecoglou's the right man, whether he's going to, what type of position a Spurs in, is winning going to spur them on to becoming a better team? So, of course, winning is the only thing in the final. But now they've won it, looking at the future, where are Spurs? And I would be in a little bit of a negative camp in terms of saying it was a really, really poor season. And OK, you can cling on to the fact that they're in the Champions League and won a trophy. But if you delve a little bit deeper, it's not like they were playing way better in that competition. You think, oh, my word, so they have got it in them. They were pretty average in that competition as well.
But again, the facts are, the record shows they're winners, and second of all, the culture's changed.
That's what it is.
And third of all, they've got the platform in terms of where they go from here to bring in players so that they can offer Champions League football.
And I love Ange.
We always talk about managers doing a job at a club, right? A job isn't finishing third but no trophy. A job is what Postecoglou's done. Win a trophy, change the mentality.
Like he said he would.
Sell the club to other players and bring other people back in that can get the club where they want to be.
And it's what Manchester United have done in previous seasons, where maybe they haven't had a season this bad before, but I think not since they got relegated in the mid-70s, but they have had a poor season. What they've done in previous poor seasons is win a trophy. By hook or by crook, they've got their hands on a piece of silverware at times. And this time, they weren't able to get that over the line. So, as poor as Tottenham's season has been, Manchester United, in terms of the league, have only been a point or two better off than them. And they weren't able to get the silverware either.
No, they weren't.
It was a toss of that final. Like, we're sat here, and I totally get the direction of where we're going here. But they've both had shocking seasons, both of them. And that final was I mean, Manchester United were the best team. What did Tottenham have? About 30% of the ball. It was, if anything...
And then the goal itself, even the goal.
Even the goal.
You know what was really quite embarrassing about it?
We're saying Tottenham have had a good season now, because of toss of a...
But
they've both been rubbish.
We're being playful.
Yes.
But the point is, it's what that does then going forward. It's what winning a trophy in a really hard season can do. If anything, I mean, you two will know. It might mean nothing. It might not be able to change anything. But if you can look, if you're Man United or Tottenham, and say these seasons were awful. And Amorim went on the pitch yesterday and apologised to the Manchester United fans for the season, of which he's only responsible for half of it. But he's kind of gone on and apologised to them. But if you come out of it with a trophy, do you start next season differently? I don't know. You might tell me I'm talking rubbish.
No, and it will. Listen, it can only be a positive. Of course it can. It only be a good experience can only be positive. But I'm very much my outlook on life really is that if you keep doing the right things, or the wrong things for that matter, if you keep being Manchester United and Tottenham, putting those performances in, let's get it right. Tottenham were very, very, very lucky to get away with a really poor season. Now they're in the Champions League and they've won something. And if you look at both the managers, one is doing a speech and everybody's cheering for him. And I love, Postecoglou. But one's doing that and one's having to apologise. Now, you've got total chalk and cheese. And then when you actually break down what the difference was, well, they were both equally as rubbish. And in fact, in that final they played against each other, Manchester United were way better and probably deserved to win.
Relatively speaking.
And we're still saying one's an absolute hero and one's having to apologise. I don't buy that and go along with it.
At the end of the day, Tottenham got the trophy. That's it. Tottenham got the trophy. That's what they'll
Well, they did, but you continue to do what you've just done. It's all right papering over that and saying, we win, and so let's continue doing all... No, it's not good. It's not. Yeah. They got really lucky. They did. And if you continue doing that, if they don't improve, they will be in trouble.
Yeah.
They will, and the manager will be in trouble, and the club will be in trouble.
What I was saying
if you continue doing that, they got lucky one year.
It's another chance for Levy because he's
Back
had
a manager
chance after
with
the League Cup in
Pochettino.
08. Then he got Pochettino. Pochettino finished in the top 4, no trophy, sacked him. Now Postecoglou gets a trophy, doesn't finish in the top 4. You're going to sack him as well? That would suggest you don't know what you want.
Absolutely.
So I think they should stick with him.
Me too.
Tell you who did have a good season. Liverpool, champions. So we're going to be talking about them next. They lifted their second Premier League trophy, their 20th top flight title at Anfield yesterday. We'll talk about their season next. Liverpool are the Premier League champions. They celebrated after they won the league in the game against Spurs a few weeks ago. Now they celebrated yesterday at Anfield when they were presented with the Premier League trophy. And they'll be celebrating again today when they have their parade in Liverpool city centre. And there for us, as the crowds start to assemble with, an hour or so to go until it all gets underway, is JJ.
Hi guys, here I am on the second floor of the Cunard building here on Liverpool's waterfront. A very impressive building, equally as impressive as our vantage point where we can look right down the street and already 6 people deep the fans are lining up, which is fantastic considering that the parade officially doesn't start until 2:30 this afternoon. The parade is going to be about 10 miles long. It's going to reported to take between 3 and 5 hours to complete, starting in Allerton Maze and ending in Liverpool's city centre. The reports are that there are going to be between 500,000 and 750,000 people lining the streets of this brilliant city to cheer on their heroes, parading that Premier League trophy that is much coveted. And as you can imagine, a city where football is everything. They are already in fine fettle. The songs are being sung. I can smell that smoke in the air. The flags are waving. It is going to be a truly incredible afternoon for everybody associated with Liverpool.
It is going to be incredible, and that was filmed a little while ago as well. And there's still an hour to go till the start of the parade. That is going to be, as he said, hundreds of thousands of people. They've had a big music festival in Liverpool this weekend as well, so there's expected to be 500,000 people in the city. The population of Liverpool isn't that big, so it's going to be a big... And all the Evertonians have left for the weekend, so it's going to be a big weekend. The season has been incredible for Liverpool, and that wasn't where the expectations were at the start of August, when Arne Slot took over from Jurgen Klopp. He took over a squad that now we're saying is an excellent squad, but at the start of the season we're saying, yeah, it's good. It's a very good squad. I don't think there was as much praise for it.
No. I think that at the start of the season people were saying, we'll see how he does, because this is a very good squad. Jurgen Klopp's left in with a fantastic squad, and how is he going to get them to play? Was he going to try and change the way they play? So from a Jurgen Klopp rock and roll style with all the pressing and everything, was he going to change? And yeah, he did change it a bit. They played a little bit more football, and you got Gravenberch coming in, and he was magnificent. And for him to take that team without changing anyone, without bringing anyone apart from Chiesa in, and just let them, he let them go. It's like an experienced manager saying, well, it's not broken here. Don't need to do anything, just maybe move some things about a bit. You know, obviously, like I mentioned, Gravenberch coming in and Curtis Jones playing his part. People playing their part, Mo Salah in the season of his life. He didn't do anything but gave them the belief that how good they were. And then they had a great start to the season. Everyone was talking about, Liverpool, it's an easy start. Let's see what they do with this game. Let's see what they do with that game. And they kept winning them. And so you thought to yourself, they've got so much experience in there, especially down the spine. They could do it if Liverpool can keep going, and they did. And for me, they were the best team in the end.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, obviously, but now I looked at every pundit's predictions before. Nobody picked Liverpool. Nobody fancied them.
And in hindsight, we all didn't have them in the top 4 as well.
We all look back now and think, why? All of those players...
Only could have been, Mike, because Schlott's coming in and people...
That's the only thing, right?
Maybe.
Because the rest of it... But why should that change so much? Because all of these players are experienced. They've all won every single trophy there is to win. Champions Leagues, leagues, everything. They've won the lot. So why would we actually sit there, apart from the manager, and think, oh, wow, they've got no chance? They've done it before. This exact team have done it before. So it's... Yeah. And they've absolutely walked it. I mean, they won
I think what they showed, the Kels, is that they still had the hunger and the stamina for it. And then they were coming in, they wanted a new manager to come in. You know, when a new manager comes in, you say, all right, let's see what he's about. And then once he starts impressing, you think, yep, he's lit the fire again. And then, bam, everybody responded in the dressing room. And you could see after, like, 12, 15 games that, yeah, it's going to be Liverpool's season.
And that's the thing, is the way everybody's sort of describing it now sounds so logical, sounds so easy. They've got a partnership, one of their commercial partners, they've done a piece on their social media, Liverpool, where the players are sort of going around going, it's easy. That's how we like it, it's easy. And it's sort of taking the mickey out of that kind of, like you said, the hindsight of going back and going, obviously they were going to do this. Obviously it was going to be straightforward. But is there something in the way that Slot has set the team up that allows these players to kind of, one, keep their fitness across the season, keep their energy across the course of 90 minutes that is a bit less exhausting than what Jurgen Klopp was doing?
Well, definitely with Mo Salah. Mo Salah's come out himself and says, I'm not asked to defend like I used to under Jurgen Klopp. It was full thrust going that way, but also you've got to get back and defend as well. He's getting on in age, of course, and you've got to change a little bit. I think someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold starting to go a lot into midfield under Klopp, building, you know, from right back into midfield. Jordan Henderson would fill in a lot of the time. Now he's pretty much staying in that, or he was staying in that position at right. He has made slight tweaks. Wrighty's right, and there wasn't so gung-ho, much more methodical, probably a little bit slower in their build-up, but they don't concede as many chances and shots. It's all a little bit more organised. So there's are definite tweaks, and as I say, you know, when you look back, you think as long as the manager doesn't ruin things, and what's happened over the last 7 or 8 years under Jurgen Klopp, then why shouldn't they have won something? They've done it all before. They've been there, seen it and done it. So in hindsight, it's smacking us in the face, and I just can't believe that nobody actually went for it and said, you know what, I fancy Liverpool for the season, for the league this season, because none of us did. And I think it can only be the manager. We were waiting to see, because Jurgen Klopp was so good. And because we've seen in the past the likes of Fergie, the likes of Wenger, you know, managers that have been there for that long period of time, and we've seen what happens immediately after they leave, they've all gone to rubble, all of them. So I think that was sort of, certainly in the back of my mind, thinking after 8 years hearing the same thing to get something totally different now might be a shock to the system. They might need time to learn. But they didn't, and they're experienced players, and we shouldn't have doubted them.
Nope. And even the new player that came, Federico Chiesa, hasn't really played any minutes in the Premier League for Liverpool, and you know, as you say, he's moved Ryan Gravenberch, changed position for him, and tweaked like a Cody Gakpo or someone like that has sort of tweaked things at the club, and it feels now as though having won their second Premier League trophy in 5 years, and having been in title races in those, all bar one season, I think, in between those times, does it feel as though this is a continued level of success for Liverpool, and having won trophies in that time as well?
I think it could be, because Jeremy Frimpong is going to come in at right back from Bayer Leverkusen.
We believe.
We believe.
Florian Wirtz, we believe.
Well, Florian Wirtz is an interesting one.
That'd be a brilliant sign.
He's versatile in those attacking areas. He's going to cost a huge amount of money, into 9 figures, and that would be a real statement of intent for Liverpool in terms of the expenditure and the calibre of player, and the way that he's going to improve them as well. The expectation is that they're going to sell Darwin Núñez and bring someone else in as well. So I think the way that he's moving the club forward is a huge reliance on the players, and the man management that comes with managing a club like Liverpool. That is such a big beast in terms of domestic and European world football. But he's got the temperament to be able to handle that, and that's why I think it could be an era of continued success.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they've got a lot of money as well. I think they've got a lot of money. They never spent anything apart from Chiesa. That was nothing really. I think they've not spent anything for a good while. I think they've got money. I think there'll be a few players. You mentioned Núñez. Kelleher, the goalkeeper, he's going to go. What they're going to get for him? 30, 40 million.
Yeah, but Mamardashvili's coming in, so...
That was done last year. I mean, they're freeing up, and there'll be 1 or 2, players around the fringes that'll go there. I reckon they're going to be bringing in 100 million plus, and they've already got some money that they haven't spent for a while. And I like the way Liverpool are doing it, to win and then to go for it and to strengthen from a position of strength.
It's old style Liverpool.
Yeah, that's.
I love the way that they when they work. If they have, say, if it is going to be Florian Wirtz and whoever it's going to be, is out. You kind of hear about it, then all of a sudden, bam, it's done. Yeah. You know, it's not like, oh, we didn't get him, we'll go for him.
Yes.
You know, this is why...
they do it early
like that
as
with
well.
they
do it early,
didn't they?
And a lot of the big players that have solved problems for Liverpool, they've just been really decisive. Van Dijk, centre-half, Alisson in goal. When they want a player to solve a problem, they go top shelf, bam, and they bring him in. And that's why I think that it's going to be an era of continued success for them.
Yeah. On Trent Alexander-Arnold, talking about players who won't be there next season, it was really emotional for him at Anfield. He did get the send-off that he would have hoped that he would get, and we saw how much it meant to him. He's clearly very emotional anyway. We saw him when Jurgen Klopp left, who's sort of his footballing father, if you like, last season. And now he's leaving the club that he's been at for 20 years, 6 years old to 26. He was booed in the last home game where the fans kind of made their frustration and disappointment clear that he was leaving. And there was some anger in there as well. But this time around, it was a lot more supportive of Trent Alexander-Arnold. And it was a lot. I think he would have gone into that not knowing what to expect.
Exactly.
And as someone who's played for Liverpool and Real Madrid and felt that kind... No, but you felt both of those things from that crowd.
He wouldn't have slept the night before. He would have been going in the dressing room at half-time and the manager saying, right, you're going on at half-time, and him thinking, oh, no. And you could see in his face, as soon as they said, coming on, Trent Alexander-Arnold, you could see... And the feeling when you don't get booed, when you feel your own people actually love you, and, you know, all those 20 years wasn't almost wasted in many ways, because that's how you feel. I know your trophies will always remain and your memories will always remain, but going on a sour note is just the worst thing that can happen when you've put your heart and soul into it.
You know, the thing is, Mike, when I was waiting, because, you know, they called your name up for you, and I was so nervous.
Oh. Yes.
Right, because... you could see he kind of like looked like he was getting himself ready for whatever's going to come. And when they cheered, what made me feel nice is I've said it, that's very out of character for Liverpool fans in respect of booing their own players. And you heard it, it was worldly. Everybody's around the world saying that's not like Liverpool fans. But to know that Liverpool fans have got together, it's been sorted out of different places, people talking to each other, and then bam, for him to get that kind of ovation was beautiful. It made me very emotional.
And Jurgen Klopp did an amazing job.
Jeez, yeah.
Did you see his speech a day or two beforehand?
I thought that was quite risky because he came out and he said there was an event at Liverpool Cathedral and he said...
magnificent, Kels.
When I heard the crowd booing Trent, I turned the television off and I thought, that's not who we are. And I thought that was risky because Jurgen Klopp has chosen to leave the club. And so from afar, while he's working for the Red Bull Group, to say... this is who Liverpool is, felt like quite a risky move. Do you think that was taken on board by the fans?
I think if anyone could do that, he could do it, because it's still very fresh in their minds. Jurgen could probably get away with that. Now, maybe if it was years to come, they'd say, what's he saying? But right now, because he knows and he was so close to Trent not so long ago, he genuinely couldn't believe it. So he's speaking probably from the heart.
It was so emotional.
I mean,
he was brave, courageous, and I tell you what, I bet you Trent Alexander-Arnold is just, oh my word, thank you so much, boss, for saying that, because that might have been the difference from a few boos to just, you know. And it was so said with such passion, like only Jurgen Klopp can. I thought it was absolutely on the money and brilliant to see.
Yeah, a lovely way for Trent Alexander-Arnold to end his time at Liverpool, lifting the Premier League trophy and, of course, with the support of the fans. He says he's never felt as loved and supported as he did yesterday. Still lots to get through on today's show. We're trying to get through a whole season's worth of action, and up next, we're going to do a season review, cherry-pick some of the best moments. Right, here we go. This is it, the definitive awards ceremony of the whole season. We're going to start with goal of the season. This is the one they all want to win. Which goal have you gone for?
I liked Isak's goal against Liverpool because it was against one of the top men. Yeah. For me, one of the greatest defenders in the history of the Premier League. And it's just his touch. And before Virgil knows what's going on, the shot's gone. Look, Goalkeeper, no chance. I just think it's just excellent striking
What
play.
a season he's had.
Yeah, it's just like, look, no one could do anything about that. No one could stop that.
Yeah. Not even if it was Alisson rather than Kelleher.
Nope, no one's stopping that.
Yeah, he's had a fantastic season. What about you? What have you gone for, Michael?
I was disappointed with the goals this season. I didn't think there was one real standout. Like last season, it was Garnacho, wasn't it, at Goodison Park, which was...
Matoma as well scored a nice goal.
Well, Matoma is mine.
Is that what you gone for?
Yeah. How did you know?
I don't know, I just said because, it just came to me, Kev.
It's brilliant.
It's just brilliant. It is,
Touch like that. I mean, those quick-fire touches there, I know there were three of them, but for the first two, a ball dropping over your head like this is the hardest skill in football.
That honestly counts.
It's got Bergkamp 98 vibes, hasn't it?
Just, it's just, again, it's that first touch there, and then
it was incredible,
you can't stop them now.
No.
Because the touch is so good, and this is why people are constantly talking about your first touch, what sets you up for the strike. You can't stop people when the touch is that good.
What would have been awful if he'd done that and then not scored?
I know.
We'd have been showing that for years.
I know.
That was mine.
Was that yours as well?
Matoma as well.
Absolutely.
I've always said you know a lot about football.
That's great, because we're trying to keep this ball rolling. We're trying to keep this ball rolling. Right, which category are we going on to next? Manager of the season. And I think there's a consensus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slot coming in and doing that. Magnificent.
Michael was saying about how when you think about Ferguson, you think about Wenger, and you think about how difficult it's been to replace both those managers, and Slot's gone in behind a guy who's
unbelievable,
a monster of a manager.
Didn't touch anything, Darren. He just said, I'm going to move with this and see where we go. I think with one signing, Chiesa, and they've won the league, you have to be afraid of Liverpool for next season if they get the team that he wants assembled.
I heard a Liverpool fan of 70-odd years was talking about Arne Slot, and he said there was Shankly and then there was Paisley. And in personality and in kind of terms of what they've achieved,
it's the same,
Klopp was the Shankly, and then Arne Slot is that sort of slightly quieter, calmer, more reserved, at least in front of the cameras and when there's not a Merseyside derby. So he's a bit like that anyway. We are going to go for moment of the season. I'm
going to go with Jamie Vardy scoring his 200th goal for Leicester in his 500th game, simply because I remember that run he took us on when he was trying to break that consecutive record. But, like, for him to do what he's done, remember Arsenal trying to nick him, he wanted to stay at Leicester. He stayed at Leicester, won his Premier League, won his FA Cup, came into the Premier League at 27. He's one of my heroes. I really, really do like him. I think that for me was the moment. It made me feel very much...
Premier League as well.
Yeah.
For English football, you can be at the lowest level and aspire to be at the top, and you can work your way there despite...
It's a testament to our pyramid, it is. Absolutely.
I love that he just said, I'm not going to play the game against Bournemouth on the last day of the season. I'm just going to play my 500th and I'll score my 200th. And they just decided that's how the world's going to work.
I'm just going to bounce. That's how you can do it.
Michael, what's your moment?
Yeah, that was a great moment. I mean, to be at Anfield when Liverpool won the league against Tottenham, the match was fantastic itself, but just being on the side of the pitch for the anthems, for the celebrations, for the atmosphere, I think the whole world looked at Liverpool Football Club that day in a little bit, not envy, but in awe.
Envy. There's envy as well.
No, but I think Liverpool's got something special about it. I think no matter who you support, I think you probably looked at Liverpool Stadium that day with the fans, with the songs, with the everything going on, and it was. I went to the stadium thinking this is going to be an unbelievable moment that you'll probably never forget. Being amongst all the celebrations, interviewing people. I was blown away by the emotion, by how long it lasted. I mean, the party just rolled on and on and on, and it was just the most incredible scenes.
I'm glad they got the celebrations because of the COVID. Remember the COVID?
Yeah.
It was unfair.
Did you remember the COVID? Everybody remember the COVID.
To win the league in the COVID, Darren, you know what I mean? You denied the Liverpool fans what they got. That's why it felt really nice for me.
You denied most of them, not the couple of thousand that gathered outside the grounds and were letting off fireworks in the aftermath of the trophy
we're not meant to tell people were gathered.
Do not encourage that kind of behaviour. Darren, we can hear what your moment was.
Are you seeing enough in this side that this season you do think that they will be a side that can win? I'm talking silverware.
Yeah, absolutely.
Competing right at the top.
Am I going to answer the question or are you going to keep asking it? No, absolutely. And I think I'll correct myself. I don't usually win things. I always win things in my second year. Nothing's changed.
And you're confident you can do that with this side? You're seeing enough?
Well, I just sort of said it now, so I don't say things unless I believe them.
Nice one, Ange. Wow.
He went close a couple of times, and there was very strong chat from Ange Postecoglou. He talks the talk, and
he walked it.
With reservations, has walked the walk.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I know Mike's not going to be too happy with it.
I love him. And do you know what? Is some of his statements since about, you know, the Series 3.
Yeah.
He's got humour with it as well.
Yeah.
I think he's absolutely
I think what he said there is up there alongside the most iconic statements in Premier League history. Special one.
Yeah, I would love it.
I would love it, exactly. Even you never win anything with kids.
Yeah.
You know, we remember that now, decades later.
Yeah, you're right, Dee.
Talking of kids, perfect. Player to watch next season.
I'm going to go with, if not even kids, but I'm going to go with Ao Tanaka at Leeds. That's number 6. If he plays like how he's played this season for Leeds in the Premier League, he's not going to be there long. And I'm not trying to get him sold or anything, but he's one to look out for.
Yeah.
Ao Tanaka.
I can't even think. Player to watch next season. Go on.
Do you want to go, Darren?
I'll pick it up. Tyler Dibbling.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, I've thought of one. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, right-sided attacking player, real composure.
Jack Grealish energy.
Absolutely.
In the way he plays.
And I think that there'll be a big fun fight for him this season. I cannot see him playing in the Championship. He'll be in the Premier League next season.
Do you know what I really like? I think he's going to be a superstar. Is Believer at Brighton. I think he's had an amazing season. I think Caicedo obviously left for 100-odd million to Chelsea. Hopefully Brighton can keep hold of him, but I think he's the next one. If anybody's looking at him, he's going to cost a similar amount. He's proper good.
Good player.
I went for, on a slot, McAllister's goal against Spurs. I went for the moment of the season was Nunez getting those 2 late goals against Brentford, where it felt like because Liverpool.
Who do you support?
Because Arsenal had dropped points against Aston Villa that weekend as well, with the draw at the Emirates.
And who to look out for?
Florian Wirtz. I thought it's the end of the season. I'm just going to let loose for the end of the season. What a season it's been. I know everybody says, well, we didn't quite get the title race that we wanted, but that was Arsenal's fault, really.
At the end of the day, Kels, it's still been a great season. Obviously, Liverpool fans are over the moon, but you just go again. Only one team can win it. We'll be back next season. We'll go again. Absolutely going to go again, yeah.
Yeah, Arsenal in the title race next season.
Without a doubt.
Second place?
Well, hopefully not, Kels. We're going to take the final step, hopefully.
It will be. 4th time lucky for Arsenal. Wrighty, thank you very much, as always. Michael, thank you very much. Darren, thank you for coming in. And that is it. That is a wrap for this season of Kelly and Wrighty. And that is a wrap for this season in the Premier League. We know who's going to be relegated. We know who's going to be playing in the Championship. We know who's going to be joining us next season. And we know who are the champions. See you next time. Bye-bye.